The American Locomotive Company once ruled nearly 40% of the diesel market. Everyone assumed it would last forever, yet just 22 years later, it was gone. Not from a single mistake, but from the pressures, risks, and ambitions that once made it great. At the center was William S. Morris, a man who rose from apprentice to president, only to inherit a company already in trouble. This is a story of power, pride, and how even giants can fall. In 1901, 8 locomotive builders joined forces to create the American Locomotive Company. The merger was a smart move. Patents were shared, skills were combined, and wasteful competition disappeared. Almost overnight, ALCO became one of the most powerful names in the railroad world. For the next 40 years, ALCO ruled the steam age. Its sleek Hudson engines hauled passenger trains at breathtaking speeds. Huge Berkshire locomotives dragged coal and freight through mountains where weaker machines failed. No two engines were exactly alike. Each was carefully built to match the needs of a specific railroad. This made-to-order style was more than a business choice. It became ALCO's identity. The company promoted from within, rewarding loyalty and experience. Many top leaders had started as shop floor apprentices. Decisions were cautious and careful, based on proven ideas, long testing, and slow improvement. Steam technology changed gradually, and ALCO's culture fit that rhythm perfectly. Workers took deep pride in their craft. Managers trusted tradition over risk. The company became known for strength, skill, and dependability. For decades, this system delivered success, and no one saw a reason to change it. But in the 1920s, ALCO made a choice that slowly sealed its fate. Instead of putting serious money into research and new ideas, the company poured huge sums into dividends for its shareholders. At the time, this felt sensible. Steam locomotives were selling well, the technology was stable, and investors wanted steady returns. On paper, ALCO had everything it needed. It had brilliant engineers, skilled workers, and decades of hard-earned knowledge. What it no longer had was a deep financial cushion. That weakness would matter the moment the industry changed. That change arrived in the 1930s with diesel locomotives. Diesels cost less to run and needed less maintenance and could be used more flexibly. Railroad managers quickly understood what that meant for their bottom line. Competitors like General Motors' electromotive division had the cash to bet big on this new technology. ALCO did not. Years of generous dividends left the company rich in prestige but poor in readiness. The careful, slow, tradition-driven culture that once made ALCO great was now a liability, just as a fast and unforgiving revolution began. William S. Morris joined ALCO in 1922 as a special apprentice. He was driven, sharp, and eager to succeed in an industry still powered by coal, steam, and heavy iron. Over the next 20 years, he absorbed every lesson ALCO's steam-era culture had to offer. He learned that quality came from slow, careful engineering and long testing. He learned that loyalty mattered more than bold ideas. Progress, he was taught, came through small improvements, not sudden change. He watched senior leaders rely on decades of steam experience when making decisions, and he learned to think the same way. These lessons made Morris an outstanding operations manager. He mastered production flow, labor relations, and quality control. He knew how to run large facilities and keep complex projects on schedule. By 1944, when he became vice president, Morris was exactly what ALCO prized most: steady, capable, and deeply loyal to tradition. But without realizing it, he was also being shaped into the wrong kind of leader for the future. As vice president, Morris took control of major divisions, including ALCO Products, Railway Steel Spring, and Canada's Montreal Locomotive Works. These roles put him at the heart of ALCO's struggle to shift from handcrafted steam engines to mass-produced diesel locomotives, a change that demanded skills the company and Morris himself had never been forced to develop. The challenge facing ALCO was immense and deeply unsettling. Steam locomotives were built one at a time, shaped by experience, judgment, and pride in craftsmanship. Diesel production demanded something entirely different: standard designs, assembly line methods, strict schedules, and new supply chains. Morris now had to force ALCO's traditional values, careful development, customization, and precision into a world driven by speed, volume, and relentless cost pressure. Morris clearly understood the problem in front of him. What he lacked was experience solving it, and he wasn't alone. No one at ALCO had ever managed a transformation of this scale. When World War II ended in 1945, American railroads reached a breaking point. Steam fleets were worn down after years of nonstop wartime service, and repairs grew expensive and slow. Diesel locomotives offered powerful advantages. Fuel was cheaper than coal, maintenance needs fell by nearly 70%, and reliability improved dramatically. The numbers made this shift unavoidable. Diesel orders rose from 3,882 units in 1945 to more than 20,000 by 1952. This was no longer a future possibility but an economic certainty. Yet the market became unstable. Orders surged one year and vanished the next, while railroads demanded locomotives that worked perfectly from the first day. One serious failure could destroy a manufacturer's reputation. Industry veterans called this chaos the diesel panic. For ALCO, already weakened by years of underinvestment, the timing was brutal. In 1946, the company briefly captured 40% of the diesel market, and success seemed possible again. Then, President Perry T. Egbert made a decision that would follow ALCO for years. He pushed the Model 244 diesel engine into production despite warnings from his engineers. Testing was incomplete, and further development was needed, and Egbert believed the market was moving too fast to wait. The Model 244 turned into a disaster. Crankshafts failed in regular service, turbochargers broke again and again, and engines overheated until they seized completely. Railroads were left with costly locomotives sitting idle, while angry shareholders demanded answers. ALCO's long-standing reputation for reliability collapsed with shocking speed. As vice president of operations, William Morris was left to manage the fallout. He organized repair campaigns, faced furious customers, and tried to keep factories running while engineers rushed to fix the design. He could see the damage clearly, but he didn't have the power to stop the program. That choice had been made above him, and his role was to contain the consequences. While ALCO struggled, EMD moved ahead without slowing down. Its 567 engines proved reliable, and General Motors backed them with deep financial reserves, strong training programs, and a nationwide parts network that ALCO couldn't match. The failure of the 244 cost more than the lost orders. It destroyed trust, and during the chaos of the diesel panic, trust mattered more than anything. At the same time, ALCO's partnership with General Electric was becoming a double-edged sword. Formed in 1940, the arrangement made GE the exclusive supplier of electrical equipment for heavy ALCO locomotives. At first, it seemed ideal. ALCO gained access to GE's advanced electrical systems and a service network that grew to more than 300 locations by 1950. Customers trusted the combined ALCO-GE name, and development moved faster through shared expertise. But the partnership carried hidden risks. ALCO grew dependent on GE for critical components it could not produce itself. Even more dangerous, GE gained deep insight into ALCO's designs, factories, customers, and technical weaknesses, knowledge that would soon reshape the industry. GE watched the Model 244 disaster unfold in real time. They saw railroads lose faith in ALCO and understood that confidence, once broken, rarely returned. At the same time, it was clear the diesel market was exploding and would likely keep growing for decades. GE also realized something else. Through years of partnership, it now had the knowledge, experience, and resources to compete on its own. In 1953, GE ended the partnership and announced it would begin building locomotives independently. The news shocked the railroad industry. Long-term alliances between manufacturers were expected to last for decades, not collapse overnight. For 13 years, ALCO and GE had worked side by side, producing hundreds of locomotives and building what appeared to be a stable, mutually beneficial relationship. To many observers, GE's move felt like betrayal. A trusted supplier had learned from its partner and then turned that knowledge into a weapon. Customers were surprised, competitors whispered about ethics, and some openly called the decision backstabbing. From GE's point of view, however, the choice was coldly logical. The company had strong engineering talent, vast manufacturing capacity, and deep financial reserves. Staying tied to ALCO, a firm struggling with technical failures and shrinking market share, would only hold GE back. In a fast-moving diesel market, independence offered opportunity, while loyalty offered risk. From ALCO's point of view, GE's move felt like outright treachery. A partner they'd trusted for more than a decade now posed a direct threat to their survival. GE had gained experience, insight, and confidence through the partnership, and it was now using that knowledge to compete head-to-head. Yet both sides had valid arguments. Business partnerships are not moral contracts. In fast-moving industries, rational strategy often looks like betrayal to those left behind. For ALCO, the consequences were swift and severe. Losing GE meant losing two critical pillars at once: a reliable source of electrical components and a nationwide service network. Customers who once trusted the ALCO-GE name now faced a clear choice. They could stay with a weakened ALCO or move to GE's new locomotives, backed by proven electrical expertise and strong support systems. Many chose GE. Although new to locomotive building, GE was experienced in heavy industry and electrical systems. Products were reliable, its sales aggressive, and its service dependable. ALCO rushed to replace GE's equipment by turning to new suppliers, but the shift was slow and uneven. Customers noticed the growing problems, reliability slipped, confidence faded, and market share continued to fall. By 1954, EMD controlled roughly 75% of the diesel locomotive market. Their early start, proven 567 engine designs, and General Motors' immense financial resources had built a near insurmountable advantage. GE grew steadily through the 1950s and 60s, eventually capturing about one-third of the market by the late 1960s. They leveraged the service network developed during the ALCO partnership and added aggressive pricing strategies ALCO simply couldn't match. ALCO's market share collapsed. From 40% in 1946, it fell to 11% by 1966. By 1968, it held just 3%. These numbers represented real consequences: purchase orders that never arrived, factories running below capacity, workers laid off, and revenues shrinking year after year. William Morris eventually became president, inheriting a company already in deep trouble. Customer confidence had been shattered by the 244 disaster. GE's departure had stripped critical infrastructure, and EMD's dominance seemed unshakable. Morris was capable and professional. He managed labor disputes, pursued diversification, and maintained what operations remained. He treated employees with respect during layoffs and facility closures. Yet, none of it addressed the core problem. ALCO was a steam-era company trying to survive in the diesel age. Years of underinvestment, technical failures, and superior competitors left it outmatched, undercapitalized, and running out of time. In 1964, ALCO merged with Worthington Corporation in a desperate attempt to secure financial stability. The merger brought cash and resources, but no real locomotive expertise. 3 years later, Worthington merged with Studebaker, another struggling American manufacturer trying to survive through consolidation. These moves were not revivals, they were life support. By 1969, ALCO quietly exited U.S. locomotive production. A year later, it sold its diesel engine business entirely. The American Locomotive Company, once a giant of American industry, a name recognized across the nation, ceased to exist as an independent company. William Morris oversaw the wind down with professionalism. He managed asset sales, helped employees transition to new jobs or retirement, and ensured the company's final chapter closed with dignity. But no amount of confidence or care could undo the damage that had been done years earlier. The strategic mistakes, technical disasters, and cultural rigidity had already set the course. ALCO's fate was decided long before Morris reached the presidency. What remained for him was to navigate the end responsibly, preserving what he could from a company that had once shaped American railroads. ALCO's collapse wasn't caused by a single mistake. It was the result of four forces, all feeding off each other, that made survival impossible. The Model 244 engine destroyed customer confidence just when the company could least afford it. In a market where reliability meant everything, one major failure was enough to drive railroads to competitors. At the same time, ALCO remained trapped in the steam era. Its careful, step-by-step approach had worked well for slowly evolving steam technology, but failed completely in the fast-moving diesel market. While competitors adapted quickly, ALCO moved cautiously, and the market punished it. The company's partnership with GE, which had once seemed beneficial, created hidden risks. ALCO came to depend on components and service networks it couldn't replace quickly. When GE left, ALCO lost critical capabilities and faced a former partner turned competitor. Post-war railroads needed diesel locomotives fast and in huge numbers. EMD's head start and GM's vast resources gave them a lead ALCO couldn't overcome. The diesel panic demanded speed, reliability, and scale, things ALCO could no longer deliver. Each challenge alone was serious, but together they formed a perfect storm no leadership could survive. William Morris is often blamed for ALCO's collapse, but the criticism's unfair. He inherited deep problems created decades earlier. The 1920s dividend policies, the 244 disaster, and the GE partnership all occurred before he held top authority. By the time he could influence strategy, ALCO's fate was mostly sealed. EMD dominated, GE was rising, and the company lacked the capital for a real comeback. Morris acted competently within possible limits. His diversification efforts bought time, his management preserved operational quality, and his leadership during the final years ensured the company's closure was orderly, not chaotic. William Morris wasn't a visionary. He never attempted radical transformations or bold strategic shifts. Instead, he managed decline, trying to slow a collapse he couldn't stop. Whether a different leader could have saved ALCO's uncertain, but the evidence suggests probably not. Technical failures, financial weakness, cultural rigidity, and intense competition created a problem too large for any one person to fix. When GE left, ALCO saw betrayal, but business partnerships are not moral contracts. From GE's view, staying tied to a struggling ALCO would limit their potential in a booming diesel market. ALCO, by contrast, felt the loss deeply. The true failure was internal. ALCO rushed the 244 into service, resisted cultural change, and clung to steam-era thinking. GE didn't destroy ALCO. ALCO destroyed itself, and GE merely seized the opportunity. ALCO's story shows up again and again in business history, in many industries. Kodak invented digital cameras in 1975, but ignored them because they worried it would hurt their film business. By the time they acted, others had taken over the market. Blockbuster ignored Netflix and could not adapt to streaming fast enough. Detroit automakers kept making big, profitable cars and almost collapsed when oil prices rose and consumers wanted smaller, more efficient vehicles. The pattern is clear. Companies succeed by building systems and cultures that work for the moment. When things change, those same strengths can become weaknesses. ALCO's steam-era culture worked perfectly for building steam locomotives, but failed in the diesel age. Careful engineering, loyalty, promotion from within, and craftsmanship built their reputation, but stopped new ideas, mass production, and cost competition. Every strength became a weakness. Every good habit became a problem. The very identity that made ALCO great in the steam era became the reason it failed in the diesel era. William S. Morris was neither hero nor villain. He was a capable manager who inherited problems too deep for any one person to fix and guided ALCO through its final years with competence and dignity. His story shows that leaders matter less than systemic forces. Culture is hard to change. Timing often matters more than talent. ALCO needed saving decades before Morris became president, when decisions about dividends, technical investment, and innovation set the company on a path it couldn't recover from. Morris knew the company inside out, managed operations efficiently, and treated workers fairly. He couldn't reverse the 244 disaster, GE's departure, or EMD's dominance. ALCO's locomotives still run in museums and on heritage railways, admired for quality and durability, but the company itself exists only in history books. The diesel era didn't destroy ALCO. Its own rigidity, strategic mistakes, and failure to adapt did. Morris was simply the last to steer a ship that was already sinking.